The era of just talking about migration is over, and the era of restoration has officially begun. Today is Sunday, February 15th, 2026, and the political landscape in the United Kingdom just experienced a massive earthquake. Independent MP Rupert Lowe has officially transitioned his Restore Britain movement into a full-blown political party, and he isn't playing by the old protest politics rules anymore. We're looking at a platform that moves beyond stopping the boats to the active enforcement of interior sovereignty through mass deportation. But this isn't happening in a vacuum. We're seeing a total transatlantic realignment. Across the pond, the second Trump administration's immigration crackdown is providing the literal blueprint for what's happening in Great Yarmouth and beyond. While the liberal media calls these moves radical, the data coming out of the States shows they achieved negative net migration for the first time in at least 50 years. And finally, we're going to dive into the Great Clarification Act. This is the legal hammer designed to shatter the influence of international courts and reassert that the British Parliament, not unelected judges in Strasbourg, is the ultimate authority in this land. It's a fight for the very soul of the nation-state. Stick around, because the establishment is terrified of what we're about to discuss. Before we get into the heavy lifting, if you're new here, I'm John Gray. We are building a community of people who refuse to stand by while our national identity is negotiated away by people who don't love this country. We need voices like yours in this fight. So hit that subscribe button and join the conversation. The political map of Britain was redrawn just 2 days ago, on Friday, February 13th, 2026. Rupert Lowe, the man representing Great Yarmouth, officially launched the Restore Britain Party. Now, you might remember the internal drama that led to this. Back in March of 2025, Lowe was suspended from Reform UK after a public rupture with Nigel Farage and Zia Yusuf. The media tried to paint it as a simple personality clash, but it was always about something much deeper: ideological purity. Lowe's critique was that Reform UK was watering down its commitment to actually removing illegal migrants. He argued that the slogan, "Stop the boats," was essentially a hollow promise if you didn't have a plan for the millions already here.
The first priority is to control who comes to our country, and more importantly, who stays in our country. Restore Britain will not just stop mass immigration, we will reverse it. Every single illegal migrant will be securely detained and then deported. The message will be unrelenting. If you are in this country without our permission.
As you just heard, Lowe is moving the goalposts from protest to restoration. This isn't just about winning a few seats to shout from the backbenches. This is an attempt to institutionalize a paradigm shift in how a country is actually governed. He has released a policy document titled Mass Deportations: Legitimacy, Legality, and Logistics. It's not a pamphlet. It's a fully costed operational plan to remove every illegal migrant in Britain within a 2-year window. Now let's look at the logic here, because the logic is what's driving the poll numbers. The Restore Britain platform is built on what they call reverse migration. The goal is simple: ensure that more people leave Britain than arrive for the foreseeable future. They want to scale up infrastructure to handle between 150,000 and 200,000 enforced removals every single year. But they know the government can't catch everyone by hand. That's why they are proposing a massive expansion of the hostile environment for those who shouldn't be here in the first place. We're talking about cutting off all access to public benefits, social housing, and universal credit for foreign nationals. Lowe's argument is straightforward common sense. If you are a guest in our country, you will support yourself. If you cannot do that, you must leave. The liberal elite will tell you this is cruel. But for the rooted patriots and traditional conservatives, people like you who value stability and shared culture, it's a matter of fiscal fairness. Why should a system you've paid into your whole life be treated like a global ATM? What's truly interesting is how Lowe is building this. He's avoiding the top-down, centralized model that he felt held Reform UK back. Restore Britain is an umbrella organization. They partner with local grassroots groups like Great Yarmouth First, which Lowe founded late last year. This allows for local autonomy while giving these groups the national resources and policy muscle to actually win. And we have to talk about the cultural side of this. Unlike the more secular populism we've seen in the past, Restore Britain is explicitly framing itself around Christian principles. Lowe has been very clear. Britain is a Christian country, and he intends for it to remain one. That means a direct challenge to what he calls creeping Islamification. His platform includes banning the burqa in public, outlawing Sharia courts, and prohibiting halal and kosher slaughter on British soil. This is about national identity. It's about the idea that a high-trust society requires a shared culture. The mainstream media will call it divisive, but for many, it feels like a long overdue defense of the home they no longer recognize. While Rupert Lowe is building the movement in the UK, he is looking directly across the Atlantic for proof that it can actually work. Since returning to office on January 20th, 2025, the Trump administration has turned the American immigration system upside down. And according to the data, it's working. Trump didn't wait for permission. He declared a national emergency and invoked Article 4 of the U.S. Constitution to repel what he termed an invasion. That single act established the precedent for using sweeping executive authority to achieve mass removals. Throughout 2025, the Department of Homeland Security and ICE implemented the Securing Our Borders executive order. They ended catch and release, brought back the migrant protection protocols, and killed off the humanitarian parole programs. The scale of this operation is hard to wrap your head around. In July of 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act provided $45 billion in funding for detention infrastructure. That allowed ICE to double its personnel from 10,000 to 22,000 officers. Now, the experts in the media said this would be a disaster, but look at the results from the end of 2025. For the first time in at least half a century, the United States claimed negative net migration. Brookings estimates net migration was between negative 10,000 and negative 295,000 for 2025. The economic side of this is where the debate gets really heated. Groups like the American Immigration Council project that mass removals could shrink the U.S. GDP by over 4%. They warn of losing over $75 billion in annual tax revenue. But the Trump administration points to a different set of numbers. They've highlighted reports from the trucking and construction sectors showing large increases in blue-collar pay as the supply of unauthorized labor contracts. They argue that by forcing employers to compete for authorized workers, wages go up. Plus, by reducing the demand for low-income housing, prices in many major metro areas have actually started to decline. Finally, we have to look at the how, because even with the best plan in the world, the biggest obstacle has been what Rupert Lowe calls the parasitic legal profession and legal paralysis. In Britain, many attempts to secure the border have been tied up in the courts or blocked by international treaties like the European Convention on Human Rights. Restore Britain's answer to this is the Great Clarification Act. This isn't just another small reform. It's a total reassertion of parliamentary sovereignty over the courts. The proposal is bold. It calls for the repeal of the Human Rights Act and the Equality Act. It mandates the formal withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the ECHR, and it proposes the complete abolition of the current asylum system, moving to a model where illegal entry results in detention and removal within 24 hours. You just heard the judiciary's perspective, but Lowe's argument is that the British Constitution allows for this. In our system, the doctrine of parliamentary sovereignty means one parliament can undo the work of any previous parliament with a simple majority. He wants to replace the soft version of the rule of law, the one that lets unelected judges in Strasbourg tell us who can stay, with a hard supremacy where the people's representatives have the final word. This court curbing is happening in the US too, where the administration is testing the limits of executive power and using military lawyers to bypass traditional judicial delays. Both movements are essentially saying the same thing. The courts have become a vehicle for social justice rather than the impartial interpretation of the law. When you look at these three stories together, a very clear picture emerges. We are witnessing the death of managed migration and the birth of the restorationist model. Whether it's Rupert Lowe's new party in the UK or the Trump administration's enforcement in the US, the goal is the same: the return of operational control and the preservation of national identity. The media will spend the next year telling you this is impossible, that it's too expensive, and that it's not who we are. But the poll numbers suggest that for many, this is exactly what they've been waiting for. A majority of Americans already believe the border required a national enforcement effort by 2025. People are tired of being told their borders are a suggestion and their culture is a problem. So, what do you think? Is the Restore Britain plan a necessary correction, or do the economic risks of mass deportation worry you? Can we truly take back control without leaving the ECHR? Let me know in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to see the actual data behind these headlines. I'm John Gray, and I'll see you in the next one.